There's very few gacha games that I consider my main game. Usually I play one for around a month, then either just leave or maybe come back once in a while. Or just don't ever return entirely. You might imagine my surprise when I realized that I spent the last 3 months and close to $100 on a game. I don't say this lightly that I typically don't play a gacha game regularly for more than 1 month at a time, so this title has really captured me in some way. My name is Psyche, and out of all the ones I played, there's something special about Punishing Gray Raven. For the record, this video is not sponsored by PGR, as I don't think any game is perfect, and I will be venting out some complaints every now and then. In any case, despite some minor blemishes, I still think PGR is the best action gacha game I played, and here are the reasons why. I don't think I've seen a gacha game as action-intensive as PGR, with many buttons to press and dodge timings to focus on. Each character has 3 skills, and often they're unique passives that you have to work into every rotation. At the same time, all the way from its launch in 2019, the game looks incredibly good now from a graphics perspective. There's particles and attack warnings everywhere that I sometimes can't look away for a second. It's a game where timings are everything, meaning that if you want the best experience, you're gonna want a decent device to run it on. Why not try one of the best? I'd like to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, REDMAGIC. The REDMAGIC 10 Pro was a phone I bought with my own money. When I was notified that this already monstrous beast of a gaming smartphone couldn't get any better, in comes the REDMAGIC 10S Pro. Featuring the Snapdragon 8 Elite leading version, improved liquid metal cooling, 144Hz refresh rate, and a whopping 7050 mAh battery, this phone can handle any game I throw at it, maintaining a 60 FPS on the highest settings. In addition to having a dedicated game space for an optimized experience and 2 shoulder triggers that can be binded to free up your hands during gameplay, what's most impressive to me is the battery life. I can get away with charging this phone once every 2 days, even with the battery capped at 80% to prevent overcharging and preserve battery integrity. There is a cooling fan that can be enabled while fast charging or during a gaming session, and you can even customize its RGB lights. It's just when you think it doesn't get any better, REDMAGIC is holding an event called the 48-Hour Breakout Challenge. All you have to do is visit the REDMAGIC Instagram account and comment on the post about the ways you would spend 48 hours without charging your REDMAGIC phones, alongside the hashtags REDMAGIC 10S Pro, the 48-Hour Breakout, and REDMAGIC. Lucky winners that participate will receive a REDMAGIC 10S Pro for free. This event will run until June 18. For more details about the 10S Pro or the event, be sure to check out the description or pinned comment of this video. Being a longtime user myself, this is a phone brand I can get behind. And thank you again to REDMAGIC for sponsoring the video. Before I go into the fine details of PGR's combat, this follow-up review is releasing in the midst of the global server's accelerated schedule, where the content of multiple patches are sandwiched into one as an effort to catch up to the CN servers. Rewards and stamina vials are handed out like free candy, so your experience playing is likely going to be different if you start a year from now. A lot has changed since I first reviewed the game last year. I originally wanted to get this video out a lot sooner, but I found myself trying to complete more of the game's story and challenge modes to get a deeper understanding of them. I'm pleased to say that I'm close to hitting player level 100, completed up to chapter 21 of the main story, and collected quite a decent roster. Jumping back into the game during the accelerated schedule also presented some challenges of its own. For one, I would have greatly helped if I knew which future patches contained what rewards. After using the standard banner check to guarantee my copy of Bianca to complete my first actual physical team, I didn't read the patch notes of literally the next one, and realized that I made a mistake. But wait a minute, what's this? We are so back. So there's a lot of reasons why I decided to stick with PGR after all these months. I tried out a bunch of action brawler gachas, and they were mostly fine, but I overall found PGR's combat to be the most intriguing to play, and it was only after I started getting serious with character builds that I soon realized why. Tinkering around the game after my initial review, I realized that every gameplay feature in PGR has a purpose in how it all ties in together. Every character, or constructs as they're called in this game, have 3 skills. They're color-coded in red, blue, and yellow, except you don't actually just activate them in the traditional sense. They're typically lined up in a horizontal row, each instance of the skill represented as a ping, and the bar can fill up to 16. Pinging one skill orb will cause the skill queue to move towards the end. However, if you ping a skill that has 3 of the same adjacent to another, you perform a 3-ping, essentially a powered-up version of the skill. This means that your usage of pings while in combat is sort of a micromanagement minigame where you try to line everything up to do 3 pings instead. Better yet, when evading at the right time, you enter Matrix where everything is slowed down. and every single ping, even if it's by itself, will count as a 3 ping. This means that if a character wants multiple 3 pings in a row for their rotation, dodging at the right time can actually make it easier to fulfill. Not only that, each team consists of 3 constructs, and their positions are color-coded to match the 3 skills' colors too. This is because whenever you do a 3 ping, you can activate the QTE skill of the construct matching the color of the skill. This means where you place each character in a team actually matters, especially when you take certain character kits into consideration. For example, Nanami here can switch between 2 modes, and the switch button is the yellow orb slot. Given that this orb can only switch her between the modes and cannot do a 3 ping, she will want to be placed on the yellow slot on the team, since she can only perform 3 pings on blue and red. Since the order in which the pings show up are random, it technically means that every rotation you do will be slightly different, and you have to adapt on the spot. This entire system is pretty genius. Not only are you tested mechanically while in combat, you're also playing a mind game trying to line up the pings to suit your rotation. Now that being said, this system doesn't exist in a vacuum. There are many ways to manipulate the ping order RNG to make it more favorable, and certain character kits like Nanami just have their orbs laid out as normal skill slots. At this point, I've seen a lot of character kit explanations that read like a phone book, but I think PGR takes the cake for possibly designing some of the most complex kits I've seen in a gacha game. Of course, this isn't necessarily a dick measuring contest to see which game has the most complex character kits, since I'm pretty neutral towards this topic, but I found it to be pretty intriguing to learn how to master all these characters. Granted, if you don't want to learn all this, you can of course just use an online guide, and they're going to streamline the entire process for you. But the core gameplay is just the start. Being around for more than 5 years at this point, PGR benefits from having a lot of content. I've been busy keeping up with the weekly game modes, and I actually haven't even touched any of the roguelike campaigns yet. I certainly would consider myself a casual, so I typically just try to score high in Phantom Pain Cage or Warzone stages and just call it a day. There's all sorts of builds you can do with the memory sets that slightly benefit each mode, and I found that building characters to be so easy, it's almost unbelievable. Of course, the accelerated update schedule absolutely has something to do with the surplus of stamina given out. Though even when I played last year, I didn't have much trouble with it. Basically, everything is packaged into spending stamina for the event farming stage. You can literally just press one button and expand all your stamina. The event tokens gained can be used to buy pretty much every possible upgrade material imaginable, including just straight up buying every slot for memory sets. You can then resonate each memory with 2 slots, one on top, one on bottom. Since PGR released before Genshin corrupted the gacha scene with RNG relics, I found the resonance boosts to be very easy to get. You can farm these guaranteed resonance tickets that just let you manually choose which one you want tagged to that memory. After that, you can hyper-tune each memory to give yourself even more stats. It was then that I started unlocking some of the Infinitas Awakening for constructs. Basically letting you start with a 3 ping when the battle starts, and you get to choose which color it is. Pretty nifty way to curb the RNG in your favor, but not directly just giving a boring stat boost. Diving deeper into PGR's progression system was an entirely new can of worms when I returned. The first time around, I didn't even pull any 6-star weapons, so I didn't know just how much more impactful some of them are. As I started getting some 6-star weapons, I realized that there's 2 tabs where you can resonate or harmonize the weapon. Resonance is essentially yet another passive skill tagged to that weapon. I was sort of confused when guides started mentioning deadline timing, then I realized what it actually does. Pretty busted. With harmonizing, which I haven't been able to get into yet, you can tag another 2 additional pieces of memories to the weapon, making it technically possible to have 2 4-set bonuses. I guess this also transitions into the gacha system, since this is where you get the weapons to begin with. As I play more games with 50-50 rate up, I thought to myself, saving up for a target and not getting what I want kinda sucks. If only there was some way not to deal with this. Turns out, games like this exist. PGR has a 100% rate up chance for characters at a 60 pity, so once you have 15,000 black cards, you're guaranteed to get what you want. There's also the Cub, which is sort of like the additional way to buff up your construct. This one's more optional, but the rate up for the current patch's character is 100%, while everything else is 80%. Lastly, the weapons. After tinkering around with it, I gotta be honest, I don't think this is the best weapon system out there. It pulls a Honkai 3 where only specific constructs can use their weapon, so it's non-transferable to anyone else. The weapon gacha is far from the worst I've seen, and I'm able to get a lot of the ones that I wanted. Plus, there's no actual weapon limit breaks, so one copy is realistically all you need. It's a base 4% drop chance at an 80% rate up, 30 pulls pity. You lose the first 80%, next one is guaranteed to be the rate up. The weapon banner is also permanently available, so you can pull for anyone's weapon at any time. Technically, it's possible to bypass the weapon gacha if you absolutely don't want to deal with it by playing co-op and using the currency you get to craft 5-star weapons of your choosing. This was actually what I did when I started, and I'm usually fine with just rolling with a construct's 5-star weapon. The thing I found is that certain characters just feel better to play and can even have their rotations slightly switched when you have certain weapons and resonances, such as the case with Chu here. Is it a hard requirement? Technically not. If you want to use them in serious content though, that's still a lot of damage you're missing out by not making that vertical investment. If they made the rate-up weapon 100% for whoever is the feature character in the current patch, that would be ideal, but I don't think that's happening. Another thing that's kept me going the past couple months was the story content. I heard that PGR really steps it up in the writing department later on, meaning it also falls into the unexplainable curse of gacha game stories being ass early on and only improving later. PGR takes one of the longest to reach that peak, as you have to clear each chapter before unlocking the next. I thought the plot was picking up after chapter 15-ish, but it was only when I got to chapter 17 that made me go, yep, that's the one. That's what I've been looking for. You don't often see these detailed plots of a gacha character going through their struggles, especially when it comes to detailing something so visceral. This chapter has shown me the potential of the writing team, making Liv's character arc here one of the most memorable I've seen. Since the story tends to focus on a smaller cast, everyone basically switch out to different versions of themselves as the story goes on. The majority of the storyline until the recent ones are not voice acted with static sprites. While I personally don't have a problem with this, given that we're in 2025 and player expectations have gone up the past couple years, this style of presentation might not be too good at luring in new players that are now expecting animated cutscenes in live 2D in their story campaigns. So as I got deeper into late game content and events, I realized that the game has a lot of side activities you can do, but tends to put in a lot of quality of life features to not make them feel tedious. That being said, I do have some minor gripes about it. Classes are basically just labels in this game. It's split into roles such as attackers, amplifiers, tanks, and healers. You would expect that all the classes will excel at their respective roles, except in PGR, everyone is just expected to do damage in some way. While it can sometimes matter if there's a specific buff that only applies to a certain class or how certain characters like how Ishmael works, the roles on what they're expected to do just doesn't feel too distinct. I don't quite understand why a tank would deal more damage than an attacker. I don't think any of the points I brought up has harmed or has taken away from my experience, but another aspect that PGR does well is generosity. Just this patch, players are given a free copy of this version of Lucia and her signature weapon. Number 21, who is an amplifier and synergizes with Lucia, and a free S rank called Lilith. These rewards are actually here permanently. Pretty insane. This patch also gave an S rank selector for anyone you want prior to the most recent character. Granted, you have to pull a lottery for it, but still, it's like creating your own custom banner so you can pull for whoever you like. How the content patches are laid out is that each new S frame is separated by a patch with either a free character or an A rank. And if you do your weekly missions as a free-to-play, you can actually save enough to guarantee one copy of each new S frame as they come out. A ranks are fine if you play casually, but still fall behind in S ranks. One major downgrade is something called time lag calculation, or TLC for short. This is basically a quality of life to freeze the level timer whenever a character is doing their ult animation, so it doesn't waste your time with something you can't control. The problem is that TLC is not present in A ranks or older characters. So even though my Yada is at SSS+, it still doesn't feel good to use compared to this goober. This alone gives S-rank constructs a pretty big bonus, since you just get to save precious time in competitive modes. Even still, I do have to applaud Curl for actually releasing new A-ranks and free characters. It's just not something you see since most games just keep pumping out new SSRs for you to pull for while the lower rarities are forgotten by the wayside. Given that the game is getting older, power creep also exists in this game. They can sometimes release leap skills that try to put the older characters on par with the newer ones, though generally speaking, newer characters will perform better over time, as that has been the trend in the game's development. You want to sell the new shiny characters? Well, you gotta make them hit harder. To be fair, power creep exists in any gacha game as it stays live for longer periods, so I wouldn't say this is a problem exclusive to PGR. There's just so much to do in the game at its current state, so much so that there is now a dedicated tab to show you which modes contain what rewards. There's multiple roguelike campaigns that I have yet to explore, interlude chapters for characters, and a whole category of minigames to keep you busy. Something else I quite like is that after a patch ends, the story content that accompanied it will be made available permanently. The number one predatory practice I can't stand in gacha games is FOMO, so this is much appreciated. At this point in time, there should just be one more integrated patch before the global servers get the Devil May Cry collab, so the servers should be synced up to China's by this summer. Despite some imperfections, Punishing Gray Raven for me is the best action gacha game I played. Its complex gameplay mechanics and how it all blends together, the generosity of the gacha and free rewards, the story having no business going this hard, and the overall quality and maintenance makes it one of the most feature-rich games you can play on the market right now. I don't think any game is perfect, but I typically don't stick to playing a single gacha game for more than 1 month at a time unless it's something that's really resonated with me. And this happens to be one of those cases. The monetization feels fair, and it's that rare occurrence that I feel every penny I spent was worth it. Give the game a shot if you want, because this is a game I can see myself playing for the long term. Hope you enjoyed this follow-up review of sorts on Punishing Gray Raven. If you want to catch more gacha-related content, you know what to do. Thank you for watching, and as always, have fun out there.